Hi everyone, my name's Amy from Dayton Nursery in Norton, Ohio, and here we grow tens of thousands of perennial plants in over 800 different varieties every year, and picking just 10 of my favorite perennials for this video was quite a challenge. However, after years of experience in watching these plants grow and thrive both here and my home, I'm very happy with the 10 I have chosen. Now, many of our perennial plants actually start as tiny little plugs that we pot up in late winter or very early spring, and those are usually available by the 1st of May, if not earlier. Some of these plants we actually get in the summer, grow them all summer through the winter to have them available early in the spring. This way they can be fully rooted by the time they reach your landscape. Now, keep in mind this top 10 list is just my favorites alone. It does not reflect the opinions of the nursery or even the perennial house manager, because I'm sure her list is a bit different. But who knows, maybe one day this list may change as new selections become available. Okay, so let's get started. My number one plant to talk about today is Allium Millennium. We actually saw this plant, the owner saw this plant growing in fields at Walter's Gardens up in Zeeland, Michigan, quite a few years ago, and he was completely impressed not only by its bloom power, but that it was covered in honeybees. As I'm sure you're aware, our native bee population is in decline, and anything we can do to help, we should do. The flowers are also attractive to butterflies. This ornamental onion plant does remit a slight scent of onion when crushed, or if you get up close, but it's not overly strong. In early spring, a clump of upright, glossy green, thick, almost grass-like leaves emerge from the ground, and they are followed in late July and August by a plethora of tightly rounded clusters of rosy purple flowers that appear on strong stems just above the top of the foliage. Now, I chose this particular plant not only because of its bloom power, not because it attracts pollinators, but because it will grow in the poorest of poor, dry soils, and it will grow very well. I have a few clumps in my very dry bed in blazing full sun all day, and I don't supplemental water, I do nothing to them, and they perform year after year, and the clump gets a bit wider year after year. Now, Allium Millennium grows to about 15 to 20 inches tall by about 15 inches wide in zones 4 to 8 for full sun. Plus, it is both deer and rabbit resistant. And talking about plants growing in the poorest of poor soil, my second choice in this video is Baptisia, also known as false indigo. Now, this plant makes a dramatic statement in early summer when in full bloom. Now, I couldn't pick a particular favorite variety, but they do vary slightly. Some are pink, some are yellow, some are blue to lavender, and with even one variety having two-toned flowers. But whichever one you choose, I promise you will be very happy with it. Now, like I said, this particular perennial thrives on little to no maintenance. It can tolerate dry soil, full sun, average soils, to light shade. Now, if the plant grows in too much shade, it may become floppy and require staking. This plant also has a very tough and deep taproot, which allows it to grow successfully in dry soil, but this also makes it very difficult to move once established. So site this one where it can grow for years and years to come. Now, this plant can get big. It can get up to 3 feet tall or more by 3 to 4 feet wide or more, growing in zones 4 to 9. Now, if you did want to control the width of this plant, you can install a peony ring early in the spring, early in the summer, and this will actually control how wide it actually gets. The third plant on my list is a Hookah called Pink Revolution, and I chose this plant particularly for its bloom power. A single plant can have up to 100 or more flowers in one season, creating a mass of bubblegum pink flowers for a long time, beginning in late spring. A Hookah is a cross between Hookah, also known as coral bells, and Tiarella, also known as the foam flower. Now, these flowers don't really attract butterflies or hummingbirds, but they will be visited by bees. They are also not deer or rabbit resistant, but well worth planting in your landscape. Plus, the flowers are not the only draw for this plant. Once they fade, the deeply cut, colorful foliage is revealed with shades of green with silver and purple markings in the center, giving the plant multiple seasons of interest. Now, part shade is preferred, giving it afternoon shade is ideal. Each of these little clumps can get up to 12 to 15 inches tall by about 18 to 24 inches wide, and this plant grows in zones 5 to 9. The fourth perennial on my list is the 2021 National Proven Winners Perennial Plant of the Year winner, and it is Nepota Cat's Pajama. This particular variety really impressed me last year, and I planted 3 of them at my house in late summer, and I just added 3 more. Why? Well, this plant bloomed all the way through November, and in mid-April, it was already beginning to almost bloom again. The foliage creates a little ball with indigo blue flowers from late spring to early fall. Now, even when the stem is not in bloom, the rosy purple calyx give an additional splash of color. Plus, the aromatic leaves keep both deer and rabbits away. As far as soil is concerned, this one, just like others I have mentioned today, thrives in poor dry soil in full sun. I think it would also look great planted alongside purple foliage plants for a nice color contrast. This plant also really attracts bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds. It grows to about 12 to 14 inches tall by 18 to 20 inches wide in zones 3 to 8. And for a perennial that prefers a bit more shade, there's an Stilbee series called Mighty, and it definitely lives up to its name. Both Mighty Pip, Mighty Chocolate Cherry, and Mighty Red Quinn are some of the tallest Stilbees we have ever grown. They grow upwards of 4 feet tall with huge clumps of dark green, almost fern-like foliage, with towering stems of soft and fluffy, bright pink or red flowers, depending on variety. Now, the 4-foot height is the height of the flowers, so the foliage itself will not get that big. These usually bloom in early to mid-summer. Now, like all Stilbee, they prefer partial shade. They'd be happiest in afternoon shade and moist soil. They do not tolerate dry soil very well. The flowers will also attract butterflies, and they make a great cut flower. This series will grow to about 4 feet tall by 4 feet wide in zones 3 to 8. Number 6 on my list is actually a plant that's not only a perennial, it blooms, but you get tasty fruit as well. The Buried Treasure selection of strawberries from Proven Winners are definitely a must in any garden. Now, last year this plant was introduced to the garden center trade and it was very, very popular. I grew some at home and I was completely impressed. Back then, last year, we only had red flowered variety, but this year, new for 2021, are both white and pink flowering varieties. Now, with this perennial, you do not have to choose between flowers or fruit. You get both. They are very easy to grow in full sun in well-drained soil. You can also plant this in a container or a raised bed or even a hanging basket, and also in the landscape. And even as the berries are produced all season long, they are actually quite tasty. They were of good size. They weren't too big, too small, and I was really, really impressed with this one. It grows in zones 4 to 9, and it can get upwards of 12 to 16 inches tall by 18 to 24 inches wide or more. This plant is known to send off runners, so you may have unwanted plants other places in your landscape. This is one of the reasons why putting it in a container actually might be a good idea. But if those runners become unwanted, all you have to do is dig them up. The number 7 plant on my list is an entire series of hostas from Proven Winners called Shadowland, and this series actually includes 3 Hosta of the Year winners. Varieties in this series include Coast to Coast, Autumn Frost, Seducer, Empress Woo, Diamond Lake, and Woo La La. These are considered premium hostas, which means they perform in many different parts of the country and exhibit great garden presence and performance with a long season of appeal in the landscape. These plants also have good substance, demonstrating a greater resistance to common garden pests such as slugs. The varieties in this group vary, with some being variegated, some with golden or blue foliage, and even one that is ruffled. Some can get 36 inches wide, with stems staying small at 12 to 18 inches, but all are hardy from zones 3 to 9. All of these varieties, just like almost all hostas, actually prefer part shade or full shade. Giving any of these varieties a break from afternoon sun is ideal. Number 8 on my list is a peony. It is called an Ito peony. It is spelled I-T-O-H, but it is pronounced Ito. It is a hybrid between the popular herbaceous garden peony and the tree peony. Now, it seems like they hit the market less than 10 years ago, but they are actually hybridized in 1948 by a Japanese horticulturist with the last name of Ito. The appeal of this particular hybrid is its bloom. The blooms are huge, abundant, perfectly colored, and gorgeous. These particular peonies can get rather big, upwards of 3 feet tall and wide, but the mature clump is nicely shaped with strong stems holding up the huge blooms that will not require staking. And even after bloom, the dark green, deeply lobed foliage is pretty until fall. Now, unfortunately, these only bloom once in the spring, and they can be rather pricey, but believe me, they are worth the investment. They can grow in full sun to part shade, although the flowers will last longer given a bit of shade. They can grow in zones 4 to 8. The number 9 plant on my list is a certain series of lupines, and when these are in bloom, you get all the oohs and all the ahs. There's really no plant like it. The West Country series of lupines were collected by West Country Nurseries in the United Kingdom. They were selected for the unique, vibrant colors and plant vigor. We are talking bright shades of pinks and purples, orange, and even bicolors. There are at least 10 different varieties at this point, and again, I couldn't pick just one favorite. Those include Blacksmith, Desert Sun, Magic Lantern, Manhattan Lights, Masterpiece, Persian Slipper, Rachel the Thame, Red Rum, Tequila Flame, and Terracotta. Now in my landscape, these plants are in full bloom by June 5th, which is a great time. It's right after all the early spring bloomers and right before the midsummer bloomers. These plants could grow to about 2 to 3 feet tall, with 3 foot being the height of the flowers, not the foliage, and to almost 2 feet wide at maturity. Grow these in a well-drained soil in a sunny spot and they will be very happy. They are also deer resistant, make a great flower, and they are happy to grow in zones 4 to 9. Finally, my number 10 favorite perennial on this list today is a perennial hibiscus called Summer Carnival. Now on a whim last year, it was early in summer, we planted 3 of these particular varieties right outside our Alborn produce market just to add color for the season. And boy was I impressed. They wowed us for weeks and weeks and weeks. They just kept going. This particular variety is way different than others because of its foliage. It's variegated and extremely colorful. The leaves are green with both a creamy white margin and a pink edge. Plus, the large 7 to 8 inch wide flowers are bright magenta pink and bloom later in the summer to extend the bloom time of the landscape. These plants are hardy to zone 4 and will grow to 4 or 5 feet tall by 5 feet wide in full sun. Plus, they will attract bees and butterflies and are also deer resistant. Like all perennial hibiscus, they like lots of water. Be sure to supplement with additional water in hot and dry days or if we've not had rainfall for quite some time. Also, perennial hibiscus are one of the very last perennials to pop out of the ground in the spring. So be very, very, very patient, but its vigorous growth rate makes up for the late start. All of the old stems can be trimmed off in early spring before this new growth occurs. Okay, so that's all for today. Let me know in the comments below if you agreed with my list or if there's another perennial plant you would have added to my list. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe to our channel for more content. Well, I appreciate you watching. Thanks so much. See you next time. Bye-bye.